held in the highest esteem in Islam. But the other side of this story that is rarely told is the test of childlessness. This can be very difficult to come to terms with, particularly in some communities where this issue is still shrouded with stigma and sometimes shame. So today we'll be discussing finding solace in childlessness, only on Women's AM. Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Women's AM, the show that discusses the issues that matter to you. We are here, as always, live from our London studios to bring you a range of news stories from near and far. Plus, we'll be pondering some of the basic rights of a Muslim and yet another chance for you to enter our fantastic competition. As well as this, the sisters and I will be discussing the difficult issue of childlessness. How do we come to terms with the prospect of never becoming a parent? And what solace can we find in Islam to assist us with this? That's coming up later in the show in Her Views. Before we can go any further, allow me to introduce this morning's panel. I'm Liz. This morning I'm joined by Sister Nusrat, a writer and law graduate, Sister Ayan, a freelance interpreter and homeschooler, and our special guest this morning will be Ayesha Aslam, who is a trained counsellor, and she'll be joining us later via Skype, inshallah. Thank you, sisters. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show. How are you feeling this morning?
Feeling great.
Yeah, feeling good, feeling ready to have an interesting discussion, inshallah.
Yeah.
Inshallah. You know, thinking about kind of feeling good and feeling motivated, I heard something interesting the other day that an office is introducing a weekly Bring Your Pets to Work day in an attempt to kind of raise office morale, which I kind of thought, firstly, you know, how is that going to work? You know, potentially you're going to have cats and dogs at each other's throats in the office, but I don't know, would that really kind of boost your morale? You know, what kind of things have you kind of seen in the workplace in an attempt to boost morale?
I don't know that I've seen anything really, but I think one of the things that I would definitely find a morale boost coming into work is to have a really nice breakfast. Because sometimes we just don't have the time, you're just rushing about, you haven't had breakfast, you're coming to work in a bit of a mood and grumpy, and blood sugars are low. So I think really good breakfast would be a good way to perk things up and to get colleagues to interact as well.
That's a really good thing, actually, to get to, you know, find a way to kind of talk to your colleagues. I mean, we know we never get time to chat, really. So, you know, that'd be really nice. We should have an Islam Channel breakfast, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Sister Nusrat, what about you?
Actually, this reminds me as well, not just within the workplace, but reminds me of my school days. When I was in sixth form, we used to have actually at times, normally during the summer, where our form would actually have breakfast, or each person would bring in something from breakfast, and then we'd all share it and sit on the field. So actually, even the change of environment can actually boost your morale as well. It was very different, actually, because normally you're just used to getting on doing the work. But when we were in school doing that, you actually got to talk to members of your form that you probably would have just not had the time to. So it was very good for improving relations within the workplace.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And within school, sorry.
Yeah, that's some really good ideas. You know, my suggestion to improve office morale, I think bring your mum to work day. I'd quite like to have my mum here with me. I think that would be a good way.
I don't know if I can handle that kind of pressure.
You know, another thing, actually, a place where I worked, they used to, they'd have fresh fruit delivered 3 times a week, and on a Friday afternoon we'd get a back and neck massage at our desk. So
that sounds amazing.
That's quite nice. Yeah, I felt quite motivated.
Maybe we should go and work there.
So some interesting suggestions there, something for us to think about, I'm sure. Now it's time to go to this morning's Stories of Interest in News Bites. So, Sister Nusrat, do you want to share with us the headline you've been reading this morning?
Well, the headline I've been reading is regarding violence against women in Brazil. Brazil's tough laws on violence against women is stymied by social norms, and that's in The Guardian. Grassroots experience shows that funding for women's rights organisations and initiatives to help domestic violence become less prevalent and actually tackle the problem is vital in challenging the view that violence against women is normal. Now, when I read this, I thought, yes, I'm very much in support of initiatives that help empower women and remove that, not only the stigma of domestic violence, but actually reduce it and have harsher penalties. But the issue is that when we live in a society where women are objectified, where people think it's okay to abuse a woman, whether that's physically, emotionally or mentally, we have to tackle that issue. And actually, when you speak to women or people on the front line of these grassroots organisations, they say that actually it's the social norms. You have to tackle the thinking of a person or of a society in order to affect change. And until that's done, we find the cycle repeating again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really sad. I suppose when you look at a society like the one in Brazil, people are very much about the surface, what everyone looks on the outside. They're very much, you know, into looks. So it's very easy for women to fall into domestic abuse and for it to be seen as the norm, because at the end of the day, what is a woman than just a package that's going to be unwrapped, really, essentially. I think Brazil is probably one of the foremost places that people have plastic surgery. So I think it's really, really sad that this is the case, and there isn't going to be much of a change until, like you said, the root of the problem is sorted out.
It's misogyny, essentially. Yeah.
I think it is an interesting story, and actually it's a follow-up. We've spoken about this before, but I think this is obviously an extreme, kind of extreme symptoms of this problem, but I think we can kind of see that these problems existing, you know, all around us, even in our own society, to a kind of sort of lesser degree, in the way women are seen, women are valued, and how women are valued, you know, kind of in sort of the different communities. And it is very much a sort of indicative of need for a kind of cultural change on a vast scale, not just looking at Brazil, but I think probably most countries throughout the world.
Even when we look at countries that are within the Muslim world, we find that cultural attitudes, not from Islam, I must state that categorically, that don't stem from Islam, but cultural attitudes are actually the issue that impede women's advancement and actually do not amount to liberation of women. So when we look at this idea of women being objectified in different cultural contexts, yes, it's something that has to be tackled on a much global scale. But obviously, as Muslim women, we look to Islam to liberate us in that sense. Yeah.
I think, subhanAllah, the sad thing is obviously we become almost in such a full circle where, you know, some people in the societies we live in today think that the objectification of women is somehow a sign of the liberation of women. So it's kind of completely been turned on its head. So it's really difficult to kind of change those opinions.
I think it's been a great brainwashing scheme for women to believe that just because they can bare their skin and show it all, that somehow they're free. It's not really free, because at the end of the day, who's pulling the strings? You know, who's telling you that that's your liberation? You know, to bear all, to profit for yourself, but then who gets the greater profit of that?
Absolutely true. So it's about kind of taking it back, isn't it? Absolutely. So some fantastic points there raised, sisters. In Mexico, there are potentially thousands of animals in need of a new home, following a government ban on the country's circuses. Take a look at this clip to find out more.
Wild animals put out to pasture in Mexico following a government ban from the country's circuses are taking up new residences at shelters in the central state of Hidalgo. This is amidst concerns that there may not be enough room for the estimated thousands of tigers, elephants, bears and other exotic animals in need of new home. In the city of Pachua, these tigers are getting new lease of life at the Rest and Rehabilitation Unit at this local park. Posters put up near the enclosures say these felines are mistreated by their former circus owners. According to local media, some 2,000 wild animals will soon need a home when the prohibition takes effect. But some have said the final figure of wild animals could be double that amount. Erica Ortigoza, the legal representative for the rescue and rehabilitation of wild animals, said there will be an official count in July and there is no reason to panic before that.
We have to wait for the animal consensus, not close ourselves off, as if we knew the answer. We won't have the answer until July the 9th, when we have the real consensus regarding this, and these consensus numbers from the Environmental Ministry will guide me. This is our world. There are 1,092 animals, and I say, leaving aside speculations, that there are 4,000 animals.
SubhanAllah, what a sad story. Obviously, it's come out of an initiative that had very good intentions for these animals, and then they've still ended up, you know, in a not a very good situation. And Sister Nusrat, what was your...
I think one of the issues we need to talk about is the rights of animals, actually. As much as I'm very much for the banning of their initiative to actually ban circuses, because sometimes we do find that animals tend to be sometimes subjected to the worst forms of cruelty in order to satisfy our entertainment. That's something that needs to be addressed. But the fact that animals are sometimes not valued, this comes back to our thinking of, oh, it's only animals. No, Islamically, we're even told that we should value the animal. We see, for example, where a woman mistreated a cat, a hadith of the Prophet, where a woman mistreated a cat, and she was reprimanded or punished for that. So the fact that that displeased Allah shows the high value and status that we should have for animals. They shouldn't really be objectified for our own entertainment. Yeah. And if so, we have to ensure that their safety is of top priority.
Yeah. But even just to remember to show kindness towards animal, the massive reward that there is, because we know of the narration of the woman who was a prostitute who, out of the kindness of her own heart, decided to give a really thirsty dog some water out of her own shoe. She was granted Jannah just because of that act of kindness. So it's really important to remember that they're not things, they're part of Allah's creation, and everything we have a responsibility in looking after everything around us, and not just ourselves, our children, but the environment we live in and everything that consists in that environment.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, this issue of responsibility. Obviously, lots of us visit zoos and safari parks and things like that, and, you know, we should really take it upon ourselves to do our research and make sure that these animals, you know, that their welfare is kind of looked after, and that they are in a good place.
And they will account us for it, actually.
Absolutely,
as well.
Absolutely. So Jazakallah khair for some really interesting points about that story. Some very interesting discussions on the headlines this morning. We'll see you in just a few minutes when we're going to delve straight into our main discussion in her views. Today we are discussing finding solace in childlessness. But just before the break, we all want to get to Jannah, right? We'll take a quick look at this clip for some tips on how we can start heading in the right direction. See you after this. Assalamu alaikum.
As Muslims, we are always trying to better ourselves in our understanding of Deen and Islamic practices. Here are a few reminders of the smaller things that we can do to reap great rewards, inshallah. Cheering up Muslims. The Prophet, peace be upon him, has said, on the day of resurrection, Allah will cheer up, by his forgiveness, he who cheers up his fellow Muslim. Easing matters for those in hardship. The Prophet, peace be upon him, has said, Allah will make matters easy in the hereafter for he who eases hardship for a Muslim. Being kind and merciful to the weak. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has said, Allah will be merciful with those who are merciful with others. Be merciful with those on the earth, and the one above the heavens will be merciful to you. Alhamdulillah, there are many different ways that we can reap rewards. It's the small and regular habits that we do that add up our good deeds.